Hello and welcome to Say Hi to the Future, a podcast aimed at highlighting the human side of ingenuity. My name is Ken Tenser, CEO of SpyderWorks, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations and entrepreneurs globally. With me today is Sameera Chukkapalli Holmes, founder of Needlab, a design research organization aimed at solving sustainability issues for communities using human-centered design strategies. Like this video if you enjoy our show, and subscribe to our channel. Leave us a comment with who we should interview next. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Sameera, welcome to Say Hi to the Future.
Hi.
Sameera, I think a lot of your world focuses around human-centered design strategies. So what is a human-centered design strategy and how can it help us, or what can it help us to do better?
Yeah, there might be a lot of theoretical definitions out there, but I came across working using the strategy without even knowing what it was. So I learned it by doing it and then realizing, wait a minute, this is what that means. That a lot of theory and design thinking strategies and all of that is put around. I do have to add that our work has gone beyond human-centered and also considering environment and human-centered, putting the focus on both. In a way, humans have been consuming resources and are being in the center of for everything to be designed for them for a very long time. I think now more than ever, we have to think about a balance between human and nature and environment that's around us. So you're doing both of that. We basically have a participatory discussion with the community we are working with and the problem at hand, and try to understand what's the root cause of that problem. Why is this happening? So we don't address some of the symptoms, but we get to the bottom of it and try to understand, okay, these are the root causes. What can we attend to first? What is our capacity? And then how can we support them with our skills that we have? And then having those open conversations with the directly impacted helps us to understand from their perspective instead of us from a very far away distance, like having an opinion about it. And then we have discussion amongst our team with the skills that we have. How can we use our knowledge into supporting, solving some of those issues? That's something that we do.
Okay, so those issues though are must be pretty vast. I mean, one of the things that fascinates me that I'd love to hear about is your work with the Obama Foundation. And I believe, are you the Obama leader for Europe, is it? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
so I mean, those are pretty significant issues, human issues, life and planet issues, balance issues. So please, yeah, let me know a little bit about that because I was just fascinated reading it.
Yeah, so President Obama is an incredible leader, and I followed his work throughout, before and after, and as a person of color, to see him be a face of a campaign and that thinking was really impactful. I think for me, and then when I speak of young leaders that are coming out today, maybe for all of them. So I've been following their work for quite some time, even after he left office and the foundation's work. So I got involved with them last year. So they select leaders from all around the world and work with them in supporting them with the skills that they need. So that's something that I did first with them. So we learned about leadership. How can we handle conflict better? How can we be better leaders who are negotiating with both the sides of the conversation and not just being in silos of our own opinions? How do we break that bubble and try to understand the other side and mediate for that? So the communities and the problems that we are working on are solved in a more inclusive way. And he's always championed that. And we do the same in various issues that a lot of leaders are working on. And in my work specifically for that is around migration. I'm a migrant, and housing issues, public space issues, and how do we design to be more inclusive and to heal instead of hurt? Because design and architecture for a very long time has been used to be exclusionary. And reversing that is quite hard because that has led to people believing they deserve less somehow. So That part of work is very much connected to the foundation as well, with all the work that they're doing on the South Side in Chicago. And all the leaders also become very supportive with the kind of work, even though we don't have the same expertise as each leader in the cohort, we have a lot of empathy because we face similar problems, similar difficulties, and like the burden that we feel of, wow, this issue is so much bigger than me. I'm here alone chipping away a small part of it, but how could I even grasp the entirety of it? So those situations, the leaders and the community within the Obama Foundation is very supportive, and it brings hope in a way for us to keep going and keep working on it, which is very important. Yeah.
And what are some of the differences? Because I imagine that the challenges in Chicago versus Europe versus many other countries around Asia, Australasia, et cetera, the challenges must be vastly different.
They are, and we do learn about other leaders' work in the community. So we do have something called as the Obama Leadership Network right now, and all the leaders, scholars who are graduating from the programs are. It's a safe space to have those conversations and learn and interact with each other there. And also, we forget that leadership is a skill. It's something you acquire. It's a tool that you keep in your toolbox. And how you deal with difficult situations and conflicts that arise is similar. I could learn from a leader in Asia to Africa to North America, but how they dealt with something similar, even though it's not the exact issue, or even though the community doesn't deal with the same problems, but I do learn a lot from the leaders there. And that's really supportive. And then taking references to that and foreseeing, hey, this was tried somewhere else and it didn't work out. So maybe we could learn from their experience in that and take it a step further or try it in a different way. Instead of reinventing the wheel in this space of ethical leadership, we try to learn from each other. That's something that's very, very rewarding and intellectually also very thought-provoking. Those conversations, especially around democracy and how to be more inclusive and have a spectrum of opinions live in harmony with each other. That's very important. And that remains the same from my point of view.
Okay.
How an individual leads, that's common, I guess.
How do we lead with ethics? And I say that because historically, I don't think that ethics drove a lot of the decisions that we made. I
Yeah.
wouldn't even say that today
Yeah.
ethics drive them. So how do you marry or manage ethics and leadership, and how is it becoming, more critical within organizations?
It's not been shown in the past, but there has been recoveries. If we notice, it's not always a straight line, and it's not always an recovering curve. There's always ups and downs. Historically, we do go forward, and maybe we take a step back. Maybe we take two more steps forward, and then a step back. So we do have to be conscious of not losing hope when that happens. It happens in political spectrums. It happens in trends of leadership because it influences leadership patterns around the world. For example, if something's happening in India and that's gaining momentum, maybe Brazil picks up on that and leadership direction there changes. So we feel we are very different, but in a way the world is kind of small and we do get influenced, and that has happened several times. So from my point of view, I think it's tapping into individual values and then being like, okay, what do I individually believe in? And can I tap to that and find commonality among other people? And then my first followers, second followers, all of those people who believe in the same ideals bring a momentum. And that could be the change that we want to see in the coming future. And I think now with the millennials and Gen Zs and all of this conversation of ethics is very, very important. I'm teaching a class on ethical leadership, and I see that. I see the interest that a technological innovation has to be ethical. I had a group of students design an ethical AI for healthcare, and I'm mentoring them. I realized that maybe I didn't have these conversations as much as Gen Zs are having that right now, also with climate change impacting them the most historically compared to other generations, and for the future of them and their children to be the most impacted. I feel it's very much needed, the conversation, and education, I feel, should include it in at every level. Why not at high school?
Right, right.
Yeah, why don't we learn science from a perspective of what are my values and ethics? And I think that would change the way we build every industry.
So as you say that and you talk, I believe it's at NYU that you teach now ethical leadership. You talk about ethics, ethical leadership in AI. I think one of the hard things for me to think through is what we program in, are they our own ethics? How do we separate our own ethics from true ethics or
Yeah.
truly beneficial? I mean,
Mhm.
that is a boy, depending on the lens or perspective you're looking at, ethics, what is right and wrong, there's such a difference between what truly is good
Yeah.
for humanity and what we believe. So how do you balance that with AI?
Well, I'm not an expert on it. I have to disclose that I'm a faculty who's teaching ethical leadership and entrepreneurial systems. So I have
Mhm.
students, 28 students coming up with different ideas. So there are 10 ideas.
Right.
And this is one of the ideas that students are working on. The way I support them and lead them is to have a critical mindset and to question what's happening and to learn what are the different avenues they can tap into. Of course, the data sets influence it, and the human biases that we have do seep into that. And we have seen that in MIT's research. People of color are negatively impacted through different AI sets, data sets. So there is definitely that, but we have to be democratic as well, right? We have to be inclusive of opinions as long as it is not intentionally intended to harm people or designed to harm people. I think that's where my red line shows up.
Mhm.
Are you intentionally doing this so you could exclude someone? Or has someone tried to flag something when they've noticed a pattern of behavior that is not for the best? That's when I think we as humans should alter it. It's what AI and data sets are just information, and we can choose what to do with that.
Right.
We've always had access to information. What we do with a knife, do we cut an apple or do we harm someone? That's always been there.
Mhm.
And I think this AI and the innovations that are coming out of AI is again a tool set. You have another toolkit where you can use it, just like Microsoft Excel or Word or any of those tools that we have. What can we do with that? And I think educating our community on how do we use those tools and what are we doing with it is a better conversation to have than I think going down the rabbit hole of what all bad things can this do. I mean, we've always had that. Things could
Yeah.
all be used in many ways than it was designed for. Innovation always has those parallels. So that's where my interest is.
No, you're right, and it is a very good positive place to put the interest. And I think that the notion of intent to harm is critical because yes, there are always going to be good and bad in the world, and I'm never one to stop innovation, to stop the next step, to stop foresight and integrating foresight into what we do. And I'm Canadian. I believe in good. I'm not saying we're a perfect country. I'm just saying as a Canadian, I was taught to believe in good. So,
Yeah.
um, tell us a little bit about Needlab. You founded Needlab to solve problems related to habitat, urban resilience, and both cities and rural communities.
So I couldn't help it. um, I did start when I was 23, 24, which was pretty young. And little did I know about how to raise money, or how does the industry work, and what are the rules of the game that I was getting into. Maybe that was one of the reasons I did it.
Hmm.
Maybe if I had known, I probably wouldn't. I don't know. We could only speculate now. But I started when I was doing my master's program. I was very hopeful and I wanted to solve housing crisis. And I was doing masters on how can we 3D print houses using clay. So it's
Hmm.
a sustainable material. It can perform much faster than human beings. We could be resource efficient, everything positive if you write down a list on a technical paper point. And I was like, wow, this is going to solve everything. And as I got through my thesis, I realized there's a lot of stuff that I didn't see. And that's where I started to think this is not enough. I couldn't just stop here and give up on that knowledge that I acquired by going in that direction. And that's where I was like, okay, I need to do something. So it started off with projects, and Needlab was something that came into mind. This is something needed, and we're a laboratory that innovates for
Hmm.
what's needed for communities, because it's maybe not beneficial to manufacture those products or innovate for that at scale, because the problem doesn't exist at scale. And
Hmm.
a lot of construction industry innovations happen at scale because financially that is beneficial, and that is where it can be replicated several times. So it's like, could we do something small scale that's shared with communities, and that's a knowledge that's passed on, and it, even though it's not financially beneficial, can we still go ahead and research that? That's where the thought came in. Later, realized something that is now our normal, let's say, toolkit. We have this 5 E's: environment, education, economics, emotion, and it's how we tap into any project. So we see how can we influence what is available as a resource there, and can we support these 5 E's, and what needs to take a lead in this specific project. For example, going back to the 3D printing of houses, yes, you can solve it very quickly, you're resource efficient, it's environmentally less damaging, but you remove a huge component of economics, which is benefiting a lot of communities through employment. Human beings involved in construction industry and trade skills is a massive economic contribution to a community. And how you consume local resources that are not just the primary one, but the secondary, diversified material resources is also important to maintain balance. These
Right.
were the things that I realized at depth when I started going down that road, and that's what we do now.
What are some of the projects? Can you give us an example of something that you've done and scaled and how it related back to the 5 E's?
Yes. Okay. So we started, housing was one of the important issues that we wanted to address from the start. So we are iterating on it, and this housing was house for all, with the intention that, can we design housing where there's flash flooding? Can we design housing that is modular in a sense that materials could be replaced with the ideology
Mhm.
that is shared? And could we do something where skills are, people are trained, so the knowledge that they acquire, they could start a company themselves, they could build and learn construction and work either in furniture design or um, building houses. And we also looked at, can these houses become independent in terms of energy? Could these houses' roofs become an energy grid in itself that's contributing two-way, and redevelopment of low-income housing isn't looked at as a resource consuming one, and now
Mm.
it is a contributing one. And then could we build a house that could grow crops that are cash crops that community members who don't have full-time employment could use the seasonal income from that. So our one of the house projects includes all of this, along with it's raised about the ground level, which lets the water, flash flooding happen seasonally, and it doesn't relocate the community, which is very important. Relocation costs a lot, even for local governments, and also disturbs the life cycle of the community who lives there. So how could we do that with least disturbance to someone's livelihood? And yeah, this is a house that we built in Nairobi in Kenya, with partnership with the UN Habitat and local contractors. We also learned that local contractors are not often beneficial because they cannot bid for tenders and compete with larger construction companies. So we worked with a very native, small construction company that is family owned, and hired a lot of local Kenyan migrants who come into Nairobi searching for work. And they live in one of the largest slums in the world. It's a Kibera slum, probably mentioned several times. So some of the workers were living there. So we're like, okay, could we train them? That could help them to either repair or upgrade their own housing that they were living in. Could we share these skills? How could that go further into impacting their own housing? That was a direction we looked into. The second one was when we were presenting the house, we had again a panel discussion, and a very, very inspiring man asked a question. He was visually impaired, and he shared that for the community that he speaks for, have a spectrum. You know, it's not just the way architecture or housing is designed right now. So he's like, for our spectrum, what do you propose? So we started working with that community, coming up with the conversation. How can we share and have even a dialogue when a housing design process is made? And then we realized, okay, we could send textures, we could send materials, we could have this. We started researching how to share design in terms of room circulation. And we did interviews with the Kenyan visually impaired community, from the spectrum of someone who only cannot see partial vision, who had partial vision, to someone who is completely blind from birth. And we learned a lot. So now we are iterating the version 2, which is for addressing visually impaired community as well. So that's something that's upcoming, and COVID happened in between.
Right.
So being on ground and working with communities in rural areas was a concern in terms of not bringing something there as visitors. So yeah, I will update you on that soon.
That sounds incredibly rewarding. Tell us a little bit about Nudge Global Impact Challenge. You said something about sparking curiosity in learning environments is the best thing you can do as a coach. So how do you spark curiosity, and how does that help with this impact challenge?
Well, I was part of that a few years ago, and I do go back, and like most of the communities that I'm involved in, I believe if I've benefited from it, I do have to give back. So Nudge Community is one of those that I had joined very early in my career, where I got trained in sustainability. So I do go back and teach and facilitate workshops there. So curiosity is something that led me in the path that I have taken. I'm an architect, but also I stumbled upon conversation of human-centered, environment-centered design when it was not being spoken about in my industry. It was all about architects' vision and design, and not a conversation with what the community wants or people want. So then I was like, wait a minute, I'm curious about that. Let me go through that. And then I stumbled upon how to run an innovative initiative to benefit people. And then I got interested in social entrepreneurship. So each step, there was something that sparked my curiosity, and it was like, "What's that?" And that drew me to who I am today. It kind of built me up step by step, and as I went through that, now, like, who would have known I would meet Obama, a girl from south of India, had nothing to do with any of leadership conversations or political spectrum that I'm part of right now. But here I am. So I believe that education systems and learning environments should cater to that. if an individual shows curiosity towards something, they should be given access to that. And that curiosity leads us to make our world better. And if everybody is being able to feel satisfied with the direction that they're learning in, I think we'll have better educational systems. And I do believe very strongly that education is the way that community can be empowered. I've heard it over and over again with a lot of initiatives that say we empower people. That somehow hits me in a weird way. I'm like, well, no one needs to, people have voices, people have a direction they want to take. It's all about removing the hurdles that are in their way. So if someone could remove the hurdles, people can empower themselves.
Yeah.
Just remove the part that makes it difficult for them to learn, difficult for them to have those conversations or exposure. So for me, those hurdles were I couldn't get into some rooms, I couldn't get a chair somewhere. So even though I was curious, those doors wouldn't open for me. So being part of communities like Nudge Global Impact, Obama Foundation, these were the ones that opened those doors for me and removed those hurdles for me to get further where I wanted to go. So yeah, I wish for my classes to be those which navigate the community to feel that they already have a voice, and they could learn skills how they could navigate that path, and Needlab to remove those hurdles.
Well, Sameera, thank you for being you. Thank you for your curiosity. And when we started Say Hi, and we've been very true to it, it's about finding people with stories like yours who've made such an incredible contribution and such an impact against all odds. Because I think that so many of us talk about, as you said, empowerment today or overcoming, and we really don't connect with those who have. And that's been the passion behind what we are doing. And helping people learn about ingenuity and maybe learn how to think like some of the people like yourselves do who've found a way. So thank you again. That was my little soapbox for what we do, but it is why we're here. So thank you again for being part of it.
Thank you very much. I recently had an incident with a student. I was like, it's hard to comprehend the fact that students call me a professor today. I'm 30 years old, and I walked into the class, and the student looked a bit lost. I was like, "Hey, you can follow me and come." Okay, and then I opened the door, and I was setting my computer up, and then he goes, "Are you the instructor? Are you the professor? I'm sorry." And I'm like, "Yes, I am." And then he goes, "Oh, okay." And then puts his back down. I think I wished for me to have been exposed to that when I was growing up, to see that diverse community members being included in that. So yeah. Even though it's hard, we have to do it. And thank you for starting Say Hi to the Future. And thank you for Sonia to finding me and for making this happen.